Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Byrne from DBpsychology Services, known across social media as DBpsychology. This morning I'm going to talk about this week's blog, which is all about building self-confidence in women, and fingers crossed for a Facebook Live this week. That's very bad. The weather is very bad, so fingers crossed. So self-confidence. Self-confidence isn't something that we're really born with. Self-confidence is something we learn over time. And as a result, we can actually learn it. It doesn't matter how old you get. It doesn't matter, who you are, whether you're a woman or a man, or you can learn. You can learn self-confidence at any stage. And if you've lost self-confidence in yourself, then you can relearn it. It is something that we can actually learn. And I outlined that in a bit more detail in the blog, which you can find at www.DBpsychologyservices.com. Now, in saying that, I'm going to move very quickly through today because there's a lot to get through. So identifying what would destroy your self-confidence in the first place. I do talk about women in terms of what we have to do, and caught up in things, maybe the way you were raised, things like that. So I do go into all that in the blog. But a few key points would be anxiety. If you suffer from anxiety or any form of mental health, will take your self-confidence. Of course, your self-confidence is going to take a knock. Trauma of any kind, and I mean from, excuse me, when we talk about trauma, I talk about, a car accident, something as simple as a car accident. Even a bump. I'm not talking about a major car accident. Even think of a very small accident, even not involving a car, but it can take your confidence away. You can get a knock, and it can take your confidence away. It can be something from there, very simple from there. It can range up then in terms of trauma. It could be sexual abuse. It could be a sexual assault. It could be, you're going out the other extremes now. We're going to go from something very small to something, domestic violence in particular would knock your self-confidence. So it can be something very simple, but to you it's very traumatic. And then it can be something that we would obviously associate with a trauma, such as I said, sexual assault, sexual abuse, domestic violence, anything like that will of course be traumatic and knock your self-confidence. Stress, most people wouldn't realise that stress of course can knock your self-confidence. If you're under an awful lot of stress, it's going to be constantly bashing your self-confidence, so you're going to go down. And again, I would reiterate, a codependent here. You've taken on too much. Codependents have a tendency to take on too much and have very low self-esteem. So therefore, of course, they're going to have low self-confidence. So, you've got to look at those. If that's your characteristics, if you are a codependent, of course, you're going to have low self-confidence. So you might want to work on that. And that tends to be an awful lot of women. An awful lot of women would identify as being codependent. So, I'm not excluding men here, but an awful lot of women do identify more than men being codependent. Procrastination, again, at the root of procrastination is always, I'm not good enough. So therefore, you won't take the next step. You won't do things for yourselves. Catastrophizing, everything is, of course, going to have a negative outcome. So therefore, again, you're going to be fearful. You're going to feel, things aren't going to work out. It's never going to work for me. And again, so it could be as extreme as that, or it could be just simple negative thinking. Again, going back to childhood, or some sort of trauma, or some sort of, if you're in a relationship that is, very debilitating. It doesn't have to be physical violence. It could be a constant negative stream of negativity. It could be the people your friends and family, they're very negative, so therefore you've built up this negative thinking, and of course it's going to destroy your self-confidence. So those would be the basics, destroyers, as you like, that we would call destroyers of self-confidence. So we have to be aware of these. As always, if we want to change something, we have to raise awareness. So how can you build self-confidence? I'm going to do this in two parts. So the first thing would be just some skills for building, and then I'll talk about an action plan. So self-care, if you haven't got, I've said it before, if you haven't got basic self-care, that's the foundation of the house called you. If you have not got your basics of self-care, Sorry, you're not going to be very good at having self-confidence and self-esteem and things like that. Setting healthy boundaries. This is going to be fundamentally important. A key important point here in building your self-confidence is to have good, healthy boundaries. And I have two blogs up there. One for setting healthy boundaries. One is setting healthy boundaries in relationships. Do check them out. That is a key foundation there with your basic self-care. If you don't have healthy boundaries, yes, your self-care or your self-care is going to go out the window, but also your self-confidence, self-esteem is going to have gone out the window. And as I said, stress is a particularly bad, knock, a destroyer of self-confidence. So if you're under an awful lot of stress, you need stress reduction, and you need meditation included in that. So ways to find relaxation, reviewing your to-do list, review your priorities, things like that. Anything you can do, a whole list of things you can do to help reduce your stress levels. Then the next thing I would say, and people might like this one, but is take responsibility for yourself. And why I say that is, if you want to change something, that means you take charge of yourself, you take responsibility. This is my life as it is at this moment, and it's kind of like drawing a line in the sand, and you say, this is where I'm at, and that's okay. You're not going to negatively judge yourself. Okay, you don't want to do that, but you're just going to draw a line in the sand and say, I want to change this. I want to change my life. So that means taking responsibility for yourself. And it also then means that you have to, my next point would be, to list out the qualities that you already have. And if you have low self-confidence and low self-esteem, you're going to think that all you have is negative, negative qualities, or all the negative ones are bigger than the positive ones about yourself. But I would advise you to really strongly take time to look at that list, and to take time, maybe a week or two, to actually write that list and write down all the good things. Think about things you do for people. Think about how you are as a friend. Think about how you are as a family member, and really give it some thought. If your self-confidence has been knocked, you don't tend to see the good in yourself. And that can be a bit of an eye opener. So, you can ask friends, if you feel confident enough and you have a really good friend, you can ask them for what are my good qualities? What am I good at? What are my things I can do? The smallest things, and write those all out on a piece of paper, or keep them somewhere. You need to keep that list somewhere you can see it nearly on a daily basis. If not, I would say yes, on a daily basis. To remind yourself that you are a good person, to remind yourself you are good enough. Remember, I spoke at the start, the procrastination particularly is about, and the catastrophizing is particularly about fear and about not being good enough. So you want to start building your good enough. I am good enough. You're using affirmations like that. I am good enough. If you can do mirror work, it's fabulous. Not everybody can do mirror work because it is particularly tough. So using affirmations like that and keeping that list where you can read it on a daily basis and remind yourself, I'm good at this, and keep adding to it. It's a continual list that you build. I spoke about a continual stop list in the past, where you stop doing things for other people and that's it, they're never getting done again. And this is a continual list that you're building for yourself of you, things that you are, your good qualities, if you like. And only the good stuff can go down. We're deleting the negative, okay? As I said, meditation is particularly important. And it's particularly important to look, if you are somebody who catastrophizes, who procrastinates, who ruminates, okay? So meditation allows us to get in touch with those continual our thought process, the ones that go on what we call the washing machine effect, the spin cycle. It goes on the spin cycle as you would have a washing machine, and it goes around and around and around in our heads. We have to start identifying those, so then we can delete them and replace them with something better, and something that is more realistic, and something that is more positive. And I go into all that, and I link out to, how to delete negative thinking, because it's very important. When we delete something negative, we fill the gap, we'll fill that void with something positive, because the void will want something in it. It won't, you've got to think about it as digging a hole in the sand, and the water wants to come in to fill it. It's going to want to come back in and fill it. So you've got to think of that void as the same way the water's going to fill. Well, you want positive water going in there. You want that, you want that positivity going in there. You don't want negativity going back in there. So we have to work on that. And awareness through meditation will help us. Journaling, of course, will help us identify thought patterns. So using these techniques will help build your awareness, and also looking at the stages of change. And I've done a video on the stages of change, so I won't go into it today, but do look at that and see what to expect, because we'll all have ups and downs in this journey. If you are trying to change something, particularly build your self-confidence, it has to be consistent, and you're going to expect some knockbacks. So, it's almost like the universe saying to you, do you really want to be self-confident? Yes, you do. You're going to have to say back to the universe, yes, I do. I want this. I deserve this. I am good enough. So, look at the stages of change and what that means. And then we have, of course, the act as if, which is a great one. You put that false, it's false. It is false. And people go, oh, I can't do that falseness. Guess what, guys? Yes, you can. Everybody does it. Best actors in the world, best celebrities in the world, they will act as if. Okay, that's what they're doing. They're going out there and they're acting as if they are, confident. And most of them aren't. And most of them, if you've ever heard interviews with them, they will say to you they are absolutely terrified before they step on stage. They're terrified before they get in front of, the cameras on the red carpet. They are afraid. Just like you, just like anybody else, they are afraid. So act as if is a good thing to learn. The other thing, the last point in this section, I would say, is get a mentor. If you have somebody that you really admire, you can get mentors for different parts of your life. You can either decide it could be a therapist if you want to go and see a therapist, particularly if you have trauma and things like that, or you need help with your stress reduction, I would advise get a therapist. But you can find a really good friend that will be your mentor. Somebody that you admire. You don't have to meet them. Maybe it's just somebody you admire. But if you can get a really good friend who will help you along this journey, it's very important. The same mentor wouldn't be, you wouldn't employ them for business. It's not a thing. As I've said before, you get different types of mentors for different areas of your life. So think about somebody that maybe you can approach, that is, or maybe is a good friend, and you say, look, I don't really feel that self-confident, or somebody you can confide in, and that is what you need here. And that's what I'm talking about, a mentor, somebody you can really confide in and is always going to be there for you, and they will boost your self-confidence. People like this will boost your self-confidence. Now, part 2 of this building framework is an action plan. We want an action plan as well. So apart from everything else I've just told you to do, there's an action plan you can take. So we identify first your comfort zone. So you want to know what your comfort zone is, and you want to see, what am I really comfortable at? Where am I at? What do I like? What do I like doing? And then you see where the edge of that is. Let's look at the edge. Where is the edge of that? What could I not step out into doing? So this is as far as I'm prepared to go, and I can't step out. And then the next thing after you've identified those 2 areas would be to identify what you're not comfortable in, what you're not confident in. And then you need to make a list. And it's a small steps, okay? On this list, there are small actionable steps that you can take into, okay, it's kind of like a little bit, like you jump out of the comfort zone, you tackle a little bit, and then you jump back into your comfort zone. So you're going to see, what can I do in the next week? That's a small step in the right direction of moving, expanding my comfort zone. And that's what it's about. It's about expanding your comfort zone. So when you have that list and you try it, next thing is to actually try it, take that step. And that can take a lot of courage, but it's to make it as small as possible. If you try something too big, you're going to get a knock and you're never going to want to do it again. So a small as possible step that you can take in the next week off that list that will help you move a little bit into the uncomfortable zone, but is still okay, a little bit okay, and you try it. Dip your toe in the water, as they say. Try that, and then you have to journal about it. You must reflect. If you want to change it, you have to reflect on it. So what you do then is you journal. Okay, what happened? What did I do? How did I feel? Be honest with yourself. Be honest with other people when you're doing these things as well. If you don't know how to do something, be honest with them and say, look, I don't know the answer, or I don't know how to do this. I've never tried this before. People will value your honesty. Okay? They will value your honesty. So journal about it and see what the responses were like around you. See what your responses were. Take your time journaling. Don't just put down the first answer, because sometimes we're so fearful that our brain shuts down and we can't get the reality of the situation. It's when we take time to reflect and we say, oh, that wasn't too bad. Oh, okay, I was afraid, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that, in most cases, is going to be that's going to be the reality, is it's not going to be as bad as you thought. Your fear will hold you back. And then, of course, the idea at the end would be to repeat and to keep repeating. As I said, building self-confidence needs consistency. It needs you to try these things. It needs you to try small things. And with building up of the small steps, you'll eventually realize your comfort zone, that edge of the comfort zone, has expanded, and your self-confidence will expand along with it. So I'm going to leave it there. And good morning to Deirdre, and I know Colette is listening as well, two of my regulars, and a couple of others, Kim and Jennifer, is also listening. Some of my very faithful regulars every week, and good morning to them. And I will talk to you all next week, and as usual, the blog will be out on Monday at 10 o'clock, and I hope to talk to you next week. Thank you.